Hey everyone, it's the Cinema Dude, and welcome back to my channel. And we're back after a week break with a cool topic. Today, we're going to discuss movie podcasts. I'm going to give some recommendations. I have a list of 9 movie podcasts I listen to, and then some honorable mentions as well. These are just things I think everybody should be listening to. So let's hop right into it, and we'll get started with the honorable mentions. And first up is the Saturday Night Freak Show. This is a weekly podcast with Colin, Sean, Holly, and Michaela. And each week, one of them picks a movie. And they kind of do if there's 4 weeks a month, each of them get their own movie to pick. And it could be action, it could be adventure, it could be horror, science fiction, and then they kind of just watch it and review it. So, kind of a really cool one. That one is almost like hanging out with your friends and stuff with that. So, next on our honorable mentions list is the Anomaly Film Podcast. It is based off of the Anomaly Film Festival right here in Rochester, New York. And each kind of time they pick a movie similar to the Saturday Night Freak Show, and they discuss it. And it could be something that they've just shown. They did one after they showed... it was one of the ones that Saturday Night Rewind movies they did that they partnered with, and they showed that, discussed that. They did one on Ghostbusters. They've done kind of everything, and then when it's close to the time of the Anomaly Film Festival, they will discuss what movies will be showing, and then they also do like a post festival recap. So really kind of cool with that podcast. The next two are ones that are right now currently don't have any new episodes. So whether or not they come back is kind of up in the air, but still something I would definitely recommend to check out. First is Scarecrow Radio, Scarecrow Radio, offshoot of Scarecrow Video store in Seattle, Washington. And this podcast, they kind of just discuss a bunch of stuff each week. They're very short episodes. They have one segment that they talk with people who run the article Unstreamable, and that is all about movies that you can't find, of course, on streaming services. They did one episode where they interviewed a kind of a Britney Spears super fan, and they went through everything that they have at Scarecrow Video that has to do with Britney Spears. And stuff that was, this is only a VHS one, or this is only, was part of like a CD package and stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see kind of the inner workings also of a Scarecrow Video as well in that podcast. Their last episode was in October of last year. So, as you can see, it's almost a half a year, nothing back. So hopefully that one comes back. But yeah, cool one. And then the last of the honorable mentions is the Saturday Night Rewind podcast. They are from the Fright Rags crew. For those that don't know, Fright Rags is a t-shirt company based right here in Rochester, and they put out all those cool horror t-shirts. And so it's pretty much the staff of that, and they discuss different topics. That one was, last episode was in March of 2020, so I think COVID kind of threw a wind to that podcast, but there are some cool episodes they have in there. They the first few is kind of like how they got into horror and different movies and what they remember of video stores around the area. So if you are in Rochester or the Western New York area, it's kind of cool because they talk about different things that you might remember and stuff. So those were honorable mentions. So we'll hop right into the different podcasts. And again, these are in no particular order. There's some of them I listen to more frequently. So for me, I have about a half hour to my work each day. So what I'll do is I'll just pop it on because sometimes, I love music and stuff and but sometimes on the radio it's the same songs over and over again. So it's nice to throw some of these episodes on here. So first off, we are going to talk about, and what I'll do too as well, all these podcasts I will link in the description today. So if you want to check them out later, you can. And with that too, I'm not getting any things from these podcasts. I just want to, kind of share my love of listening to these, because a lot of these too, I'm kind of doing this episode, there's a lot of stuff that you get in these podcasts that you're like, oh, I've never heard of that episode, or, oh, I've never heard that, of that. And it just kind of builds your kind of, your watch list, and, what do you want to get and stuff. So, first off is Monster Attack. This is a podcast from Jim Adams, and how he decides that it's dedicated to old monster movies. So the golden age of horror and sci-fi from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. He occasionally has some guests and co-hosts. Mark Maddox is one of them. And pretty much how the format goes is they'll talk about the movie, maybe how they saw it. Both Jim and Mark are a little on the older age, so they kind of have a first-hand experience of being a monster kid and seeing these films, on TV when they would have like the chiller theater stuff on Saturday afternoons, or seeing it at the drive-ins and stuff. So it's kind of cool to get their perspective on stuff. And so they'll talk about the actors, the directors, and then they'll go right into the plot of the movie. Some favorite episodes of mine, of course, is The Brain That Wouldn't Die. That was a pretty good episode. It's very sincere, this podcast. He, especially Jim, he definitely goes into kind of, my parents showed me these movies. Oh, you need to sit down and watch this and stuff. So it's kind of cool and very sincere. And that podcast is from 2016. So definitely a lot of episodes to check up on. Next, we go from the 60s and 70s and 50s and 40s horror and sci-fi, and we go to the 80s now with Neon Brainiacs. This is a podcast that talks about 80s horror, from the big blockbusters everybody knows, The Thing, Aliens, to obscure movies that you wouldn't even think of, and they do theme months. Right now they are doing aquatic horror, and they're doing 3 of the films that came out in 89, I believe. So like Leviathan, Deep Star 6, all those ones that were kind of the same concept all at one time. So Greg and Ben started this podcast in 2017, and now they've added a new person just, I would say, a month or two ago, Lance. He was helping out when each of them were out, and but it's probably one of the funnier podcasts I listen to each week. There's definitely something in there that makes me laugh while I'm driving. People probably think I'm a little crazy, but it's really cool and stuff. And definitely a podcast where, you're like, oh, I don't have that 80s film. Oh, I don't have that. And, then there's stuff that they talk about that maybe hasn't had a release yet, and then does get a release. And you're like, oh, I need to check that out and stuff. So that is Neon Brainiacs. Definitely check out their Burbs episode, because, of course, my favorite movie. But like Flesh Eater, I never heard about Flesh Eater, and then I was like, oh, looking for it, and now look at Vinegar Syndrome put it out and stuff. So that is Neon Brainiacs. Next up is Chasing Labels. This one actually kind of started in 2018 as the Cinema Discovery Project with Steve Billings, and they, in that alliteration of the podcast, they would talk about an individual film there. And then that went from 2018 up till March of last year, where they switched to their current format, which is talking about the latest announcements from boutique labels. It's kind of cool because, you can see stuff through Instagram or Blu-ray Forum or wherever, from like Dawn of the Disc or The Disconnected, and you can, if you can see that, but then let's just say you haven't gone on a day, you might miss a bunch of stuff. So this is, a weekly kind of podcast where they kind of see everything. If there's something that maybe came out that they review, he'll put it in there, but they kind of discuss, okay, hey, here are all the Criterion films that got announced. Here are all the Kinos. Here are all the Vinegar Syndrome. So it's kind of cool to keep based on that, so what's coming out, and if there's any special features, he'll talk about that and stuff. So definitely check that out if you, like me, are a big movie fan and you want to kind of keep up on stuff. The next one is the Pure Cinema podcast. This, I would have to say, is probably one of the upper ones of my podcast that I listen to. Just a kind of a great podcast. Again, another one that is, you all of a sudden are like, oh, I've never heard of that one, or oh, that film seems interesting, and kind of like the deep dive in that. So this is Eller Kane, who will be showing up in another podcast on here, and Brian Sauer, who will also have another podcast on here, and they discuss new, old, cult films, lost films, that kind of people don't remember. They go into everything, and again, they do themed episodes, so it could be all about, I know one of them is that I personally enjoyed was they do a retrospective on John Carpenter's career. So they go through each film, they discuss it, but then what they do is they then do a film that would be a good pairing with it. So they, could be something completely different. So, on Assault on Precinct 13 might be a good Western, or, so they would just kind of mix and match with that. They've done stuff on individual labels. I think another great episode that they do is the Something Weird video episodes. They discuss it, and then they go through different movies that people should check out. They've also done, during October, they've done like a horror sampler. So they've done, okay, here's if you did like a 3-movie one. Here's if you did an all-nighter. Here's if you did, a 5-movie festival. And just kind of like, how they would run it, and, how it would get people's attention and stuff like that. So, which is kind of cool, because if you are going to, do your own, Halloween, film fest, or, screening type thing, it's kind of cool. Of, okay, yeah, maybe when it's this time at night, people are maybe getting a little tired, how to get them back up and attentive and stuff. So that one has been since 2017. They've also had guests on there like Joe Dante, Quentin Tarantino has been on there a few times. They partner with the New Beverly Cinema. So there's like their main sponsor. So they'll also do like calendar episodes where they discuss like what the New Beverly is showing. Quentin Tarantino has been on there to talk about public domain movies, talk about kung fu movies. So definitely check out Pure Cinema podcast. So I said I talk about Eller Kane again, and he comes up in the next podcast, which is the Colors of the Dark podcast, which is him and Dr. Rebecca McKendry. They were both on the podcast Shockwaves prior to this, and now they've kind of teamed up again, and they kind of do a deep dive into horror cinema. They'll have interviews, they will have themed episodes, they'll do stuff on franchises, they'll do reviews. So usually how the episodes go is they'll review stuff they've watched, and then they'll go right into their main topic for the day. Again, something, if you are a horror fan and, you're looking for something new, they give good reviews on stuff and say, hey, we checked out this one, or this one's showing on Shudder, check this out. And so it's really cool on that podcast. So definitely check that one out. They do, they've done like foreign films of the 80s, non-sequels of, the 90s. So really kind of cool stuff in there. So that is Colors of the Dark. Now we go into one that has been around for a very long time. This is the B-Movie Cast. This one started in 2016 with Vince Bertolo, Nick Brown, Mary Bertolo, and as they call him, Juan from the Creepy Swamps. And just kind of 4 friends, some older folks again that have, remember these films from seeing them in the drive-ins and things like that. And they talk about cult, art house, drive-in, Mexican monster movies, action films, vintage TV, Italian films, crime films, whatever you can think of, they'll talk about it. So, like I said, was around since 2006. Unfortunately, in 2016, Vince passed away. But Nick, Mary, and Juan have kind of continued his legacy, and now they're almost on another 10 years. And they're almost up to episode 500 on that. So, really cool. They do contests. They'll do like listener. If they send in, topics and stuff, or if they've, reviewed or questions, or, just like, hey, shout outs and stuff. So, really cool, kind of very home kind of feeling to it. Someone that you think like, you sit around and just chat with and stuff. So that is the B Movie Cast. Next, we'll go back to another Brian Sauer one, and that is Just a Disc. For those that don't know, he also has a YouTube channel along with his podcast, and this is where he reviews different discs that are coming out. So almost just like Chasing Labels, but instead of just like looking what's coming up, he'll review the different stuff that he's picked up and he's gotten and stuff. So very cool. Again, it's good to have both the YouTube channel and the podcast, because the podcast will go into different stuff and discuss the stuff, whereas like the YouTube channel, you can actually see, oh, that one looks like a cool, like, oh, this box actually looks kind of cool, whereas like on the podcast they might just talk about that. So very cool. Again, one of the first ones that I kind of hopped into when I started listening to podcasts, the B Movie Cast, going back to the other one, was the first like movie podcast. And then from there, it was Just the Disc, and then it kind of went from there and stuff. So this one is from 2017 they've started, so definitely check out Brian on both Just the Disc and Pure Cinema Podcast. And the last two for today, first is the Important Cinema Club. This is a newer one that I've started listening to. And this is from 2015, and it has Justin DeClue of Gold Ninja Video, which I've talked in two videos prior, and Will Sloan, and they discussed all aspects of cinema. This is one of the podcasts that, if you want to know about random things in cinema, check this out. There are podcasts out there that will go like, oh, here's Citizen Kane, here's Alfred Hitchcock. But they say at that base level. They don't go with a deep dive. The Important Cinema Club does that. They'll talk about, Sammo Hung, the films of him. They'll talk about Doris Wishman and her films. They'll talk about Thai cinema. They'll talk about, Filipino cinema. They'll talk about, anything on the sun, obscure Canadian directors. So anything you can think of, they've talked about it. And it's really cool because, again, it's another thing where it's like, oh, I don't know about, maybe Wong Fei Hong, or I don't know about, then all the films that were made about him, or, oh, I don't know about, the direction style of, Wong Kar-wai, or I don't know, again, a lot about Doris Wishman and like her films and stuff. So like they kind of go in, talk about them, and again, it's a lot of, oh, okay, here's one I need to add to my list. Here's another one I need to add to my list. So definitely check out the Important Cinema Club. I highly recommend that one as something new that I've been listening to that I definitely recommend. And then finally, we end my list with the Suspense is Killing Us podcast. This is from three guys who worked at Scarecrow Video. Kevin Clark, Travis Voigt, and Matt Lynch. Kevin and Matt still work there. Travis, I don't believe, does. And they go through suspense films. So from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, recent ones. You name it, they'll go through it. And what they usually do is about 3 films a week, has some sort of theme. So they've done ones on like, newspaper and the media. They've done ones on like the Psycho sequels. They've done ones on, recently was like about like dreams and stuff and those kind of like thrillers. So like all those suspense and thrill films, you could think those direct-to-video ones all fall under them. Another one that's really funny. It's just a podcast that I'm constantly laughing while I'm driving and stuff. So since 2019, definitely check their podcast out as well. So everybody, that is my list. Again, I will run through real quick. Honorable mentions were the Saturday Night Freak Show, the Anomaly Film podcast, Scarecrow Radio, and the Saturday Night Rewind podcast. And then for the main ones, we were looking at Monster Attack, Neon Brainiacs, Chasing Labels, the Pure Cinema podcast, the Colors of the Dark podcast, the B Movie Cast, The Suspense is Killing Us, The Important Cinema Club, and Just the Disc. So, everybody, definitely check those ones out. Like I said, you're always going to get new stuff. They're like, I don't know about that film. And your list will grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So, check that one out. Comment below any podcasts you listen to that I didn't name that you think we should recommend to people. I'm always looking for a good, like, action one. I have a lot of horror and then generalized stuff, but I don't really have a good action or a good martial arts one. So anybody that knows in there, definitely put that in the comments below. Next week, it's going to be one of two things. If the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee Volume 2 comes in, we will be unboxing that. If not, it will be a What's in the Queue. So I have a few films in there that I've picked up that's kind of not shown yet. So I will show you in that. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you have a great week. It's starting to get nice and warm out with the summer. So I hope you guys are enjoying the nice weather. And big sales recently. We had the Vinegar Syndrome sale. This week is the Severance sale. So there's little ones here and there too. Next month, of course, the Criterion sale. So probably burn holes in all of our pockets and stuff. So, but everybody, thanks again for watching. And remember, be kind and rewind. We'll see everybody next week.